Hey everyone, welcome to Screen Realm. My name's Guillermo and you're about to watch an interview I was lucky enough to conduct with filmmaker Christopher Hatton about his fourth feature as director, Shudder release Raven's Hollow. A gothic horror film set in 1830, Raven's Hollow offers an imaginative and creepy take on the early life of writer Edgar Allan Poe, played here by William Moseley. Specifically, the tale takes place during his period as a young cadet at the United States Military Academy at West Point. They come upon a man eviscerated on a bizarre wooden rack. His dying words direct them to a forgotten community which they believe is guarding sinister secrets. Enthralled by the innkeeper's beautiful and mysterious daughter and fueled by the town residents' refusal to speak to the murder, Poe determines to uncover the truth. Risking his life and more, Poe ultimately comes face to face with the terror that will haunt him forever. Hope you enjoy the chat and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you still haven't. Raven's Hollow is streaming on Shudder from September 22nd. First of all, I like to say this at the beginning of most of these interviews: the mere fact that you made a film alone, I think, always deserves applause. So congratulations on making a film, getting one done.
Yeah, thank you. Right, they say it's just getting a coherent film made is already beating the odds.
So how did the overall idea for Raven's Hollow come about?
I was reading about Poe, just idle curiosity, not some kind of deep dive into I'm so into Poe, but just he was a great writer, and I discovered this factoid that he had attended West Point, and that was immediately a surprise. Doesn't seem like a guy who would have gone to West Point. So I took a little closer look at that, and then it was just a nugget, a little piece of gold there. Right. He had gone to West Point. He had been singled out as best cadet, and then sometime later, under unclear circumstances, was court-martialed. Oh, for me, that was like, there's an incredible gap there, and I can spin an incredible story out of that. So it was just really that interest. And also kind of associated with that was the realization that as I read more and more about young Poe, because everybody is interested in old Poe, right, or Poe at the end of his life, and that kind of salacious mystery that we don't really know what happened. But suddenly I thought, here's an interesting little bit of a mystery earlier in his life, and associated with that, the discovery that he just wasn't like what you would assume, that this guy was very handsome, charismatic, well-spoken guy, lots of prospects. He had leadership qualities, and he wasn't in any way weird or dark or anything that you would have assumed. And right. I just thought, wow, this is very cool. How did that guy become that image that we all know? Hence the casting of Will Moseley, who is just kind of a classic young leading man. I think the temptation would be to cast Poe as a kind of a savant-like weirdo who's like creepy and the guy just wasn't like that. Now, that's not to say, as you've seen it, right? I wasn't setting out to write the definitive biography of Edgar Allan Poe.
It's not a biopic.
To say the least, but for me, that was a really valid and interesting thing, and just as as a take, that's cool. How did that guy become that guy?
Yeah, tell me about the writing process. Did it take a while for the script to come together, or was it a relatively quick process?
It was actually pretty fast. Particularly back then, I sort of just fearlessly would dive into things and tear through them. I understood this arc that we just talked about, from how does this upstanding young guy, who's a little bit of a Dudley Do-Right, sort of become the broken figure that we all know. And it just seemed obvious that, well, this is an opportunity to seed in all of the little elements that would show up later in the writing and say, this is where all that happened in this place. And I think I was, looking for a unified kind of way of telling a story, because they kind of have the independent, filmmaker impulse. Like, it's not like, I don't think I can afford to go make a movie at West Point. But I did have a notion, I could do some odd town somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and do that. So those elements were, an early part of the writing, and then probably the final key, just in terms of sort of structurally building it, was the knowledge that he had effectively, as a writer, invented detective fiction, and so I could make it a little bit of a procedural story, that he could be an investigator.
It serves as a pretty interesting kind of origin story of sorts. I love the final touch there as well. It's kind of like, here and here he is, the result.
Yeah, it's really nice. And doesn't Will do a great job? When you first meet this guy, he's just very,
yes,
we must do this for honor. We must, and in the end, he's just kind of scrambled and poetic, right?
Yes.
So you see, here's a broken guy, but here's a poet emerging. The language changes.
Talking about the production, you guys filmed in Latvia?
Yes.
How did that come about, and why was the decision to go there an important one?
I was looking to find a location to shoot a different project, actually, and I discovered the backlot, in quotes, that we shot at, and I saw these interesting structures, and it struck me that, this is very, very appropriate to 1830 America. You're not going to find a lot of buildings like that. You're not going to find them on backlots. You're going to find Western backlots. You're going to find medieval backlots. You're going to find contemporary backlots. So I was immediately struck by that. I thought, and then we built a lot more. We augmented some assets that they had, and were able to make really a fully immersive town. And that was just an incredible pleasure. You kind of walk into it and you're there. It's real. You're in the Raven's Hollow.
It was kind of just ready made for you guys.
Yes. Now, we had a really good production designer, and we built a fair bit. But yeah, it was this kind of foundation was there, and allowed us to do so much more. And then there's this studio, Cinevilla Studio, that we worked at. They immediately believed in this project and got behind it, 100%.
Filming outside can be quite tough, and then filming with animals can be quite tough as well. How was the shoot in regards to the challenges?
Yeah, well, every day was, white knuckle flying, I suppose. But it was all right. Definitely the horses were a challenge. I had never worked with horses. Luckily, I had a leading man who was a very accomplished equestrian. And
that helps.
That helped. All those guys had to ride a lot, and even more than you saw, because not everything makes it in. And it was a lesson for me that what I understood from movies was a complete lie. Horses are, no matter how well trained and how well behaved, they're not going to just go forever, right? You've got limited takes before they're tired, or they're like, I can't keep galloping with these people on my back hurts. And when they're ready to stop, they're done. So I mean, that was a challenging, but I just think overall, logistically, we had a lot. And so every day you're just,
was there any particular one scene or that was really quite difficult to accomplish?
It's always the one you think isn't going to be difficult.
Right.
I think when they find the guy in the rack, everybody's seen that in the trailer. That was hard. You would think why, but it just was. There were reasons. Horses were part of it. When you're outside in the elements, you've got animals and a lot of people, and it's just easy it can drift away from you if you're not on top of it. But I had a great cinematographer, and he and I were really aligned, and we were prepped, and so we worked pretty hard to keep that ship on course, on schedule every day, and I think we were pretty successful. Yeah.
Fantastic. Just to wrap up, do you have any upcoming projects that you can talk about that you're excited about, or is it all hush hush at the moment?
Is it hush hush? That's sort of like, will I jinx it? Yeah. Working on a couple of things.
Okay.
We would like to go back to Latvia and work with our team there again. It was a great team. I think we have a project about ferries, actually. Some critical mass is building there. So a little more of a family-friendly type of piece. It's got a bit of snark and you know, it's got a little bit of teeth in it, but quite different from Raven's Hollow. Yeah.
I see that you are moving into different genres. Is that a purposeful thing in your career, or is it more just how things are working out? You don't mean it that way?
No, it's purposeful to the extent that I just don't want to do one thing. As a writer, I never wanted to do one thing. If you go back to the ancient history, look at my very, very first independent film, it's a straight rural drama. But, you know, my first professional gig is Star Trek: The Next Generation. They're worlds apart. I don't just want to do one thing. And I understand why some people do want to do one thing, and I understand how you can get pulled into a groove, but you know, it's kind of nice to, it's like a palate cleanser to do something different, right?
It is. Well, congratulations again, and all the best for the next few projects.
Thanks. Really a pleasure.